So what if you could completely transform your world in just 3 days? It sounds pretty out there, right? But the source material we're digging into today makes that exact claim. And it all comes down to the words you say to yourself. So let's get into how this 3-day challenge is supposed to work.
I mean, it's a huge promise. We're not talking 3 months or even 3 weeks. We're talking 3 days. And look, the reason for this pretty wild claim, according to the source, goes way deeper than just, thinking positive. It's tied to a really fundamental idea about how reality itself gets built. Okay, so here's the absolute core of the idea. Your internal dialogue isn't just you reacting to your world. It's the creative force that builds your world. According to this way of thinking, everything you see on the outside, your health, your money, your relationships, it's all just a projection, a shadow of what you're consistently saying on the inside. And now, let's be super clear. We're not talking about that random, buzzy chatter that's always going on in the back of your head. Nope. What the source is talking about here is something deliberate. It's a conscious, intentional act of speaking to yourself in a way that is already perfectly aligned with the reality you want to experience. So, why 3 days? What's the magic in that number? Well, the source material gets a little symbolic here, pointing to the number 3 as this number of completion. The theory is if you can sustain a brand new, deliberate inner conversation for 3 straight days without dropping the ball, it's enough to kickstart a powerful creative process and really lock in that new state of being. All right, so how do you actually do this? It's not enough to just plaster on a happy face and think positive thoughts. There's a very specific technique for this, and it's called speaking from the end. This right here, this is the absolute heart of it. It's the most important and honestly the most misunderstood part. See, most of us spend our time talking about the things we want. We're standing on the outside looking in. This method flips that completely. It's about mentally moving into the house, so to speak, inhabiting your desire, and speaking as if it were already a done deal. Let's make this super practical. Saying to yourself, I wish I were wealthy, actually keeps you in a state of lacking wealth. You're talking about it. But speaking from the end sounds totally different. It sounds like, I am so grateful for my abundant life. You see the difference? You're having an internal chat from the point of view of the person who already has it. And this is absolutely key. This isn't about just mindlessly repeating words like a parrot. The words are just the vehicle. They're meant to get you to the feeling of it being natural. You have to get to a place where this new state feels as normal and real as your own name. Because according to the source, the real magic isn't in the words themselves, but in the feeling of reality they create inside you. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do you actually put this into practice for 3 whole days? The source lays out a clear guide, but fair warning, it takes some serious discipline and a whole lot of moment-by-moment focus. So, the daily routine is pretty straightforward on paper. It all starts the second you wake up, before you even open your eyes, by consciously jumping right into your desired state. Then throughout the day, the real work begins. You have to be relentless. Guard your inner speech no matter what's happening around you, and you wrap up the day by literally falling asleep soaked in the feeling of your wish already being a solid fact. I know what you're thinking. This is the big one, right? The elephant in the room. It's one thing to talk about abundance when things are going okay, but what happens when your bank account is screaming the exact opposite? What do you do when that wave of doubt just crashes over you? Well, the source material has this really powerful tool for that exact problem. It's called revision. And the idea is pretty cool. You don't fight the negative thought. You don't try to wrestle it to the ground or suppress it. You just instantly rewrite it. You treat it like a typo in the script of your reality, and you just correct it on the spot. So, for example, that thought pops into your head, ugh, this isn't working. Boom. You don't argue with it, you instantly revise it internally to, everything is working out perfectly. Or maybe you experience what really looks like a failure. You reframe it on the inside. This is just part of the perfect unfolding. The whole point is to refuse to let anything on the outside dictate your inner world for these 3 days. Okay, so let's say you did it. You white-knuckled it through and completed the 3 days. What happens now? Do you just sit back and wait? Well, according to the source, this next part isn't about waiting at all. It's a period of unfolding. Think of it like this. By finishing those 3 days, you've successfully planted a seed deep in your consciousness. And this kicks off a 72-hour period, 3 more days, of what the source calls psychological gestation. It's a time of transformation that happens under the surface. And this 72-hour window is pretty fascinating. It's broken down into 3 stages. The first 24 hours are for reorganization, where your inner world starts to realign around this new core assumption. Then comes what the source calls the death of the old state. I know, sounds dramatic, right? But it's about those old patterns and limiting beliefs literally dissolving to make room. And that leads to the final stage, the resurrection of the new state, where that new assumption finally takes root and becomes your natural, dominant way of thinking.
So, after that 72-hour transformation, this is when you start to see things happen. The source calls them signs. Now, these aren't necessarily the final manifestation, but they're confirmations, little winks from the universe that your inner world has shifted. It might be a conversation you overhear, a crazy coincidence, or a random opportunity that pops up. The advice? Just acknowledge them with a quiet thank you and keep on living in your new state.
When you boil it all down, this whole idea rests on one powerful premise. The world you experience out there is just a mirror of the conversation you're having in here. So the real question, the one that matters right now, isn't just a fun thought experiment. It's personal. Based on the world you truly want to live in, what conversation are you going to start having with yourself today?